We don't get burned out because of what we do. We get burned out because we forget why we do it.
This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs The Playbook, and I have one of the most well-known leadership guides, is what I call them, Jon Gordon, author, speaker, leadership consultant, but basically you have a host of situational knowledge that you like to share. And we were talking earlier about all these people that want to build a platform, these billionaires, these Dave Meltzers of the world that have their own jobs and professions, but now everybody wants to be Jon Gordon. And you've written, Power of Positive Leadership, Team, Carpenter, Training Camp, which I'm going to read now. I've read the other stuff. What motivates you, though?
What motivates me is people like you. It's people that are here to inspire, here to encourage. What motivates me is a Sean McVay when I work with the Rams and I get to see him lead and how he leads his team and transform his culture. That motivates me. Dabo Swinney, who I've worked with for the last 7 years, and the way he turned around Clemson with vision and belief and passion and purpose. He defied all the critics and created a national champion, a 2-time national champion. People said it couldn't be done, and he did it. So leaders inspire me, and books inspire me, and just life inspires me.
Now, it wasn't always that way. You and I have a similar background. We came to a crucial moment, a quantum shift in our life, and I think both motivated by our wives basically telling us, you better straighten up because I'm leaving.
Thank God we have great wives.
Yeah,
and strong wives.
Yeah, I always say, people say behind every great man is a great woman. I say, no, in front of every great man is a woman pulling you along. That's at least my story. What happened that this great turnaround, how could a guy who's one of the most positive thinkers, the most young leaders, talk about in football, the two greatest young leaders are McVay and Dabo, right? Like, no doubt about it. But yet, at one time, you couldn't even lead your own life.
That's such a great point. I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I was really struggling. I was negative, I was depressed, my life was falling apart. I wasn't doing anything of purpose. I went to go work for a .com, thought I was gonna make my gazillions. The .com.
You're an Ivy League graduate.
Right, Ivy League graduate, went to
Super high
Cornell University.
expectations.
A lot of expectations. I went on bartending right after college though. Get my master's in teaching, I'm bartending. Then I open up a bar at 24. That becomes a successful place. Then I start a nonprofit, raise money for youth-focused charities like you. I wanted to give back, wanted to make a difference. I love doing that. That's when I was most excited and passionate. And then I went to go work for this .com, and now all of a sudden I'm miserable. I lose my job during the .com crash. I have 2 small children, don't know how I'm gonna pay the bills. And I just had this midlife crisis though at 30 years old.
You guys have that in common, just a little younger than most.
And my wife came up to me and she said, I love you, but I'm not gonna spend my life with someone who makes me so miserable. You need to change. And I'm not naturally positive. People think because I do this work that I am. I grew up in a Jewish Italian family. A lot of food.
With guilt.
Yeah, a lot of food, a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
A lot of wine, a lot of whining. And so there was a lot of negativity and a lot of just, my parents were very loving people, but I wasn't the most positive person. And so I really struggled with it. And then when this crucial moment happened, I was falling apart. And when my wife gave me that ultimatum, it was a wake-up call. And I said, okay, what am I born to do? Why am I here? Why am I so miserable? And I looked up to the heavens and I was like, God, please help me. Why am I here? And I'll never forget, writing and speaking came to me. It literally came to me. And I said, all right, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna inspire others the way books inspired me, the way other people had inspired me. I'm gonna go do that. My friends to this day would say, I remember you telling me that you were gonna go just do this. And we're like, what? How are you gonna do this?
Right, you go from suicidal to I'm gonna inspire other people.
Yes, exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
One other thing that doing research on you too that I thought was interesting, my mom had, a lot of guilt, but a saying about living below the line. And when you were at your lowest time, you were living in blame, shame, and justification.
Yeah.
And more than anyone I've seen, you had all this stuff going for you, but literally things started snowballing to the negative and you went way below the line instead of above the line in accountability. that obviously helps you to motivate other people. What advice do you give to people to live above the line, out of that blaming everyone else and taking control of your destiny?
Well, I was blaming my wife for why my life was so miserable. I was not owning it. I was not being accountable. So the first rule of the energy bus, which is about a guy named George who's miserable and negative, he's based on me.
The first book I read of yours, right? Great book.
He's based on me. He was so easy to write because it's my story. And George has to learn the first rule, which is you are the driver of your bus. That's it. You decide the kind of ride it's going to be. Where are you going? What is your vision for the road ahead? What kind of energy are you going to bring to your situations? Positive energy or negative energy? You are contagious every day. So you can be a germ or a big dose of vitamin C. And I think owning it is just really the key.
Yeah. And now dealing with all these leaders, a lot of times you have to go through ego, right? There's this resistance, no matter what your reputation is, who you've worked with in the past. And I deal with this a lot of times where there has to be this radical humility. But if it's not present, you have to bring it out. How do you get through to someone with great success like McVay or Dabo, where they're young, they think they know much more than they do? How do you teach them the humility so you actually can teach them the leadership?
I don't have to teach them humility. I think that they're calling me and reaching out because they're naturally humble people. I seem to attract these amazing humble leaders who want to learn and grow and get better. And it's an honor. Like Sean McVay had just gotten the job and we met and I shared with him the principles for building a great culture based on the power of positive leadership, the power of a positive team, and you win in the locker room first, the book that Mike Smith and I wrote. And we went over the whole framework for that. And so he was really open, but he's that kind of guy. Like, he was meeting with me, he was meeting with other people. It wasn't just me.
Yeah.
He was picking everyone's brain because he's a humble leader. Dabo Sweeney, same thing. He will meet with everyone. Dave Roberts worked with the Dodgers for 3 years, right? And so Dave reached out to me, he had just gotten the job, same thing. So I think I reached them at a point when they're willing, they're open, they're here to learn and grow and become a better leader. And I've been able to speak into their life, share these principles that I know work, and then you see them work on the field. That's the most exciting thing. Like, years ago, I thought I knew what I knew. Now I know it works. It's a knowing, like, this stuff works. Eric Spoelstra a number of years ago reached out, and he's like, I've been watching film all the time. 80% of my time was focused on film and tape. Now, it's about 80% on culture. And he said, we want to be a better leadership team. Can you come work with my team so that we can better lead our players and serve our players? So I meet a humble guy like him, an amazing leader who's willing to do that. So I seem to find these incredible leaders who are willing and open. So I don't teach them humility. I just teach them the principles for great leadership and how to build great teams.
And also you deal a lot with positive energy and how that can be contagious. Also the inspiration that comes from positive energy of maximizing performance. And that's not just on the field performance, it's business performance. I tell people all the time, because we both have these sports backgrounds, that if you think it's difficult to get the most out of a player, imagine what it's like to get out of someone that's going into a cubbyhole 9 to 5, working in somewhat the same circumstances every day. Where are there parallels between what you can do for a football or baseball or basketball team compared to what you do within a corporation?
As you know, it's the same. The same principles apply. That's why you work with a lot of businesses and sports. I work with sports and businesses. I work with school districts. All the same principles apply. About 80% of my work is probably business related, working with companies, the leaders of an entire company, Fortune 500 companies. So they'll bring me in to speak to all their leaders. Now we're doing leadership training where we're teaching anyone who wants to learn how to be a better leader to be a great leader through the power of positive leadership model. And so I tell them the same principles. You have to build your culture. You have to lead with optimism and belief. You have to have a vision of where you're going. Why are we going there and where are we going? You have to invite people on your bus. You have to develop the relationships that truly lead people, because people will not follow you just because you have a great vision. You have to be someone that they want to follow. So you're a person of integrity. Are you doing the right things? Are you connecting with them? Are you communicating? Are you committing to them? Leaders go first. Leaders commit first. Everyone wants a committed team. But you have to commit to your team first if you want commitment back. So it's how you lead. And then it's love and accountability. My favorite two principles together of a lot of love. Alan Mullally taught me this. You gotta love them up, John, but you got to hold them accountable to the values, the culture, and the principles and the standards. And I think people get stuck with that. And it's the same thing as parenting, same thing as running a school or teaching. We have these standards. Here are our standards. We have to meet these standards, work towards these standards. I'm going to love you through the process, but if you're not meeting these standards, then I have to help you or challenge you, push you, whatever it may be. We have to reach these standards, but we're going to do so hopefully in a positive way.
And through and knowing your principles and executing upon them, recruiting, whether it's sports or business, is a critical part of what we do. And what advice do you give for looking for talent that can most assimilate with the values that you teach and the leadership that we are discussing?
Well, first you have to know what your culture stands for. Once you know what you stand for, every decision you make is easy. And so we know what we stand for, we know what our culture is all about, so then we can find the right people that fit our culture. It doesn't mean that they're yes men and yes women and that they all have to be the same, but you have to fit with our standards and our values and how we do things here. Every culture should be like, this is how we do things here. But here's the deal, when you create a great culture, you will attract the people that want to be a part of your culture. Clemson football now is attracting the greatest talent. They don't even have to really recruit as hard as they had to in the past. Now the greatest talent wants to go there. It's the same thing with a business. When you are running a business the right way, guess what? Your employees are the best recruiters. Your players are the best recruiters. Your teachers are the best recruiters for a school. A small business, that's how you find the talent, by people saying, hey, I would love you here. Come join me. And so having raving fans inside, as Ken Blanchard talked about, is how you attract all the great people on the outside.
And one of the things that I use as a core foundational value to build that inner energy is gratitude. What role does gratitude play in your leadership philosophy?
Well, when I was negative and I was miserable and my wife almost left me, the number one thing I did to start being more positive was to take a walk of gratitude every day. And I still take the walk. Not almost every day, but bad weather, flying, it's tough. But while I'm walking, I say what I'm thankful for. And the research shows you can't be stressed and thankful at the same time. So if you're feeling grateful, if you're feeling blessed, you won't be stressed. And so we have so much to be thankful for in our life. Why do we focus on all the negative? No, let's start focusing on the positive. So I would take these walks of gratitude, and then they turn into walks of prayer and positive expectation. God, help me, God. I need this help right now. But also became, God, I expect great things to happen today. I accept all the clients that want to work with me and benefit from my gifts and talents. I expect all the new opportunities that are coming my way. It was amazing how many times when I'd be done with a walk, I'd come back and there'd be a call, a voicemail, an email from someone out of the blue. I believe we have to create more positive expectation. I also believe we have to talk to ourselves more instead of listen to ourselves. Best advice I ever heard is from Dr. James Gills. He completed 6 double Ironman triathlons, that's double. Last time he did it, he was 59 years old. Asked him how he did it, he said, I've learned to talk to myself instead of listen to myself. If I listen to myself, I hear all the negative, all the fear, all the doubt, all the complaints. But if I talk to myself, I could feed myself with the words and the encouragement that I need to keep on moving forward. As entrepreneurs, as people who are building businesses, we're going to face adversity, we're going to face challenges, we're going to have setbacks and obstacles, but we have to be more positive than the negativity that we face, and we have to encourage ourselves through those challenges. Why do we give up? We don't give up because it's hard. We give up because we get discouraged. So we have to encourage ourselves through the discouragement.
Yeah. Now, communication is a critical component, and you're an expert communicator, one of the top corporate keynotes in America with a variety of different topics as well, which I always say is the cornerstone to being a true speaker. It's one thing to memorize and perform. You're an actor, not a speaker, but someone that can speak on your 17 different books in areas of leadership and friendship and positivity and whatever else you do. But communication is the most important thing, how we connect to other people. What advice do you have of how to connect as a leader? So you have all these great qualities, you built this culture, but now you have to communicate and teach them to communicate to each other.
Most teams, most marriages break down because of poor communication. Where there's avoided communication, negativity will fill it. So we always have to make sure we're filling that void with positive communication. We have to take the time to build the trust. The trust generates the commitment. The commitment fosters teamwork, and teamwork delivers results. So every great relationship and team starts with great communication. I'm so glad you brought it up because it's everything. And I find that today we're so busy and stressed that we're not communicating as well as that we need to. Why? Because when we're busy and stressed, our brain, we activate the reptilian part of our brain, which is all about survival. And we're thinking about how we can get through the day when we're in busyness and stress mode, survival mode, reptilian mode. But we have this part of the brain right here, the positive dog part of our brain. And this is the part we activate when we're practicing unconditional love, gratitude, prayer. And so you have a quarter second to override the reptile with the positive dog. So the best advice is to be intentional about it and know that I have a quarter second in any moment to override it. The more you do it, the more you'll be able to make that decision to override the reptile. The more you're aware of it, you will see how you're rushing. You will see how you're not taking the time for meaningful relationships. You have to ingrain this into your routine, into your rituals, into your workday. So knowing this and being aware of this, you understand why we're not communicating. It's not our fault. It's biological. But now that we know it, okay, we can override it. If you've ever said something you wish you didn't say,
Yeah, right.
your reptile ate your positive dog.
Right.
And we've all been there, right? But I always say, remember that dog, that unconditional love of a dog, and we want to be more like that. So we slow down and we take the time for relationships. That dog is always present. It's not thinking about the future. I called up Ken Blanchard the other day,
Yeah.
and he had his dog sitting with him. He said, my dog's the happiest species on the planet. It already forgot about the past. It's not thinking about the future. It's right here in the present moment. So, as a leader, communicate one-on-one with the people that you lead. More one-on-one meetings. And it doesn't have to take a long time. Pick 2 or 3 people a day, or even one person a day if you have a small team, and communicate and connect with that one person for 5 minutes a day. And then another person the next day, another person the next day. Over time, you'll have meaningful relationships, more connections, and a better and stronger team. Think about it. Communication leads to connection. Connection is what leads to commitment. So we'll never have commitment without connection. So we have to create that connection to have the commitment. Navy SEALs talk about this all the time, right? The brotherhood. Why? Because they have this bond of trust. So when they take teams through team bonding exercises, what do? They go out to the water and they almost drown together.
Right.
I'm like, I don't think you have to drown together to be a stronger team.
Yeah.
It's great that they do that, and I make fun of my friends who are Navy SEALs all the time about that, but you don't have to drown together. What can you do? You can actually take the time to get to know each other, hear their story. I heard your story the other day on my podcast, which I can't wait to share. And right away we were bonding because I heard your story. I got to know you better. You hear my story, then you know me better. And now we have a bond, we have a connection. So I'm a big believer in taking the time like we did at Clemson. You sit around the room, you put a player in a chair. It's called a safe seat, a safe place to share, a safe place to be vulnerable. And that player sits there and Dabo, the head coach, asks them questions about their life. Who's your hero? Mm-hmm. Tell us about a hardship you faced that made you who you are today. What's a defining moment in your life? What's a highlight in your life that you're most proud of? And then other questions come up and the players hear that. Guys were brought to tears. I mean, just bawling, crying as they share their pain from their past. But as each guy does that, the walls of pride, ego, and selfishness come crumbling down, paves the way for vulnerability, authenticity, and then meaningful relationships, strong connections, and a strong team. They did that year, they won the national championship. I've done it with Auburn Golf, SEC championship. I've done it with corporate executives sitting around a room, and it's really awkward at first, right?
Yeah,
they don't want to share, but by the 3rd, 4th person, it gets powerful. Yeah. And then we may go back to the first 3.
Let them go over.
Again.
Last question, everything is all well and good and makes sense, but I believe consistency is, even on the relationship side, my life changed when I dedicated a minimum of 30 minutes a day to my wife, my 9-year-old, a minimum of 2 minutes a day to my 3 teenage daughters, but every day.
Yes.
Why is the consistency such an exponential factor in communication, leadership, connection, motivation, positive thinking?
Because there are D's that we face every day that will destroy us or cause destruction or division within our team and our family. Those D's are discouragement, distortion, which are lies, the lies of the world we face every day, distraction. There's the saying, if the devil won't make you bad, he'll make you busy.
I love that.
And we get so busy and focused on so many things that don't matter. We forget what does matter. And then there's doubt that creeps in. Am I not enough? Am I not doing enough to help? I'm a bad father. So we start to actually feel this doubt, And so that leads to the discouragement, the lies come in, and what do? We often give up. My biological father left when I was a year old. He didn't fight, he gave up.
Yeah.
My dad, who raised me since I was 5, he fought. I saw the difference in the two. You are someone who fought for your kids, fought for your wife, fought for your family. I'm the same way. So we have to override those 5 Ds. The last D is division, by the way. And once division happens, we're separated. Do you know the word anxious actually means divided? Yeah, and divided, anxious. Like when we are,
separate.
Separate. We
Yeah.
feel separate.
Yeah.
We feel separate from our source, separate from our creator, separate from each other. The relationship gets divided. We feel separate. So it's about doing those little things that matter most. And the consistency is what drives that. And once we have those consistent habits and we focus on what matters most, and there's the why behind the habits. See, the purpose must drive it. We don't get burned out because of what we do. We get burned out because we forget why we do it. So the why drives the habits. And now you have consistent habits. So you wouldn't do this if you didn't have the why behind it.
Right.
Your family matter to you, and that's why you have the habits you have. So let's find the why. What are the habits we can do every day that focus on what matters most? And then eventually that routine and those habits build what our life is. When I write a book, I write every December. Every December I write a book. It takes about 3.5 weeks to write a book. And it's because I sit down every morning and I start writing. If I get on my phone and start checking social media and email, it's hard. Like I lose it right away and I won't be able to write.
Yeah.
It was easier when I first wrote The Energy Bus in 2006, where there weren't the distractions. Now I have to be disciplined and say, okay, I'm gonna write first. Then I go take a walk, gratitude and prayer. More ideas come. I come back and I write. I'm done at 12. And then for the rest of the day, I'm free. That night before I go to bed, I check what I wrote. I get some new ideas. I write them down. I edit a little bit, and I start the next morning again. If I don't do that every day and I'm not consistent, I would not have written a book. So I try to explain to my kids that the process of me doing these little things every day led to the life that we now have. What I had on the inside, because we create inside out, not outside in. That's another key principle for entrepreneurs. You always create inside out, not outside in. Circumstances have no power over you. So you show up every day, you do the work, the power comes from the inside, and you're disciplined. You then create the world on the outside through your habits and your discipline and your devotion.
There you have it. Well, now I know why so many champions come, whether it's corporate, sports, or personal champions, have come from your teachings, your books, your speeches, your workshops. It becomes obvious to me as we become closer friends that I'm gonna go back and watch this one. I love ones where the wisdom is sitting there and the one-liners are sitting there exactly aligned with what I believe, but in a completely different format, a completely different way of describing it. So many people out there say, oh, you're just copying. Look, I just want to say this. Everybody's copying everyone. In fact, here's a great line for you.
Yeah.
The difference, if you steal from one person,
Right.
is plagiarism. Right? If you steal from everyone, it's research. So do your research. This guy has plenty of books to research. Jon Gordon, extraordinary motivator, entrepreneur, and now a dear friend with Dave Meltzer, Entrepreneurs, The Playbook.